So welcome to my video tutorial for Dragonflights designs. Hopefully you've been looking at some of my patterns or have bought them and are wanting a little bit of help with the special stitches and the colour changes, in which case this video will help you. I've done videos previously, don't normally do voiceovers, you won't normally see me in videos either. I've got the perfect face for radio. So on this video there is a small chart that I'm using. You might want to take a screenshot of it to have a practice of it once you come away from the video. And the very first two lines are your very basics of mosaic crochet, which is a row of 15 chains, then a row of single crochet, and moving on to row 3 we'll then have a row of double crochets, and this is that one coming up now. There are much better videos out there if you wanted to cover in the basics of mosaic crochet, so I'm not going to go through this in detail with you. The main point of this video is for those special stitches because they're not used in everyone's patterns. I find by using those special stitches it enables me to create designs that look better and give me more options for what I'm able to do, although I still tend to stick with dragons. So we're on to row 4, and this one is just using the colour white. You can see from the graph that I put the colour guidance at the side, so for row 4 it just shows it as a blank colour or the colour white, and that's just single crochet across the line. On this line we have two colours showing. The first colours that you come across on the graph are the grey colour, and that's just 3 double crochets that are being done now, so I've speeded those up. But once we get to the next stitch, this is where we then introduce a colour change. So on your final loop round for the next stitch, which is a single crochet, we introduce the new colour and pull that through the 2 loops, and then always tie the end in and knot it to secure it. At this stage, because we're not using the grey again for a little while, we're going to cut the grey and just move that one out of the way. Sometimes you can carry the colour in the back if you're changing colour rapidly, but on this occasion we won't. And this then brings us on to the first special stitch, which is a stitch to the right. Normally your double crochet, which is indicated by an X, goes to the stitch below. This one isn't, it is going to the stitch to the right of the stitch below. So find your loop at the front down below and then move one to the right, and then you don't go and put a single crochet in the stitch where you should have just been working, because that's moved to the right. You leave that one blank and then put the single crochet in the next stitch. So on this one it would be row F as it's indicated at the bottom. What you're trying to do is keep the number of stitches the same for every single row. So in this chart there's 15 stitches. There always needs to be 15 stitches. So if you put an extra, if you fill in every single crochet, then you'd end up with more stitches. So we're moving along now the row, and now we're coming to the left stitch. So again, rather than going down below, we're moving one to the left. Putting the double crochet in so it shows at an angle, and then there will be a single crochet going in just above where you've put the lower part of the stitch in, and we've now hit the next colour change. So before we finish off that particular stitch, we put that final loop through as the different colour, and what this does is give you an even colour change on each row and finishes the colour off for each stitch. So we're now moving that yellow out of the way, and there are just 3 double crochets left to complete on this row. And as you can see, those two stitches are a slight angle in the yellow. They're just moving off to either side. So we're now moving on to row 6. This is our white thread again. And this is a fairly simple one. It's several single crochets and just 2 double crochets in the middle of the chart. I've slowed the video down slightly on this one so you can see how you're having to just find that loop as to where you're putting in the double crochet, because it's just tucked behind that yellow one stitch from below that's at a slight angle. And it's the same again at this end. You've just got to find it. It's sat there, you can see it, but you might need to use your finger just to pull out that loop slightly. There's a few more single crochets to go on this row, and then we'll be able to show you what that looks like when they're all in place. There you go. So those 2 double crochets on that row were just straight down, so they're not angled. We're now moving on to row 7, and this is 2 colours again. We're starting off with the 3 double crochet in grey at the beginning of the row. Don't need to keep showing you those over and over, so we'll keep speeding those up. And then we're doing another colour change into the middle, and on this occasion we're bringing in the stitch that is 2 double crochets together. So it's one will go straight down and one will go at an angle, and they're being done together to create just the single stitch at the top, because we can only have 15 stitches on each row, otherwise your square will not be square. It will end up just wibbly lines all the way through. So we've just changed the colour there over to the yellow, and we're doing a couple more single crochets, and the stitches must always go in right to left. So for this one, it's an XR stitch, which means there's a stitch to go off to the right, and there's a stitch that is just double crochet going down below. So we'll start off with the right hand one first of all. So we find the stitch below and then move one to the right and place that stitch double crochet in place. But before we finish it off, we wrap around and then we do the one directly below this time. Loop through, wind round again, and then you've got 3 stitches on the end that you pull the yarn through, all of them. There are then 3 single crochet, and then we get to the XL, which is a double crochet down below as normal, and then one to the side to the left. So again, we leave the 2 loops on the hook and wind round, and then go and do the second double crochet off to the left. And because we've done an angle to the left, we then have a single crochet going in just above where you've put that left hand double crochet. And we're now going to need another colour change so that we can finish off the final 3 double crochet in grey on this chart. This will speed up again for you in a moment. You will notice, if you slow down the video slightly, that when I've got the threads that have been cut behind from the colour changes, it is possible to tuck them into your single crochets at the back of them so that they're secured in without you having to go through and weave in all of your ends. So we're on line 8 now, row 8, and we are just using the white colour. We have some single crochets, we've then got double crochets, and in the middle here we have 3 double crochets together, one to the right, one down below, and one to the left. They are marked as XRL on my patterns, but should not be done in that order, because they should always be done in the order from right across to the left. So that's right, down below, and then to the left, and at the end of this stitch you will end up with 4 loops on your hook, and you pull that final white yarn round through all 4 of them. Then you can put your single crochet in, another single crochet, a couple of double crochets, and then there's just 3 single crochets at the end of this row, and you're done. So I've speeded that one up because they're simple stitches again. And there you have it. There's that large stitch in the middle that's covered the 3, but because there's single crochets either side, we've only got 15 stitches still. We're on row 9 now, just some double crochets in grey again. We're changing over the colour to the yellow again, and what we have now above the large stitch below that was the 3 stitches is a double crochet that goes to the right and to the left. So it kind of sits on top nicely of that large 3 double crochet down below. And this is a case of, again, of just having to find those loops that you're trying to go through on these stitches below, because they'll just be tucked slightly behind the white crochet that was done, the white double crochet that was done on the line below. There you go. Just pop through there, and then you've got the 2 loops on, and you're finding the left hand one now. And you'll end up with 3 loops there that you need to come through all of them. Then start putting your single crochets in, and then a couple more double crochets and some singles, and again you're done on this row. There is a colour change again because you're changing over to the grey, because there's a grey border on the whole of this pattern. This might seem a little complicated at first, but it is a case of give this one a practice a few times. I do have similar style pattern charts that are very basic, that cover the colour changes or cover the special stitches on all of the patterns, so when you download them you will get a summary showing something similar to this, so you can have a practice with it. And I do recommend that you do that, because once you've got the basics of those stitches you can do the whole pattern. It really is a case of, once you've got a pattern that might be 200, 300 stitches wide and another 200, 300 rows long, you're not going to be struggling all the way through that pattern. It'll be those first 3 or 4 rows that you'll be doing where you're like, how do you do this again? You keep practicing over it, but then it'll be there, and then you'll realise that you're just repeating the same thing through the whole pattern. So it's worth persevering. I've had a few people ask me questions on this, and I give help wherever I can. It's always helpful if people share photos where they're struggling other parts of the pattern. I always give help where I can, and it's a real pleasure to see them then get to the end of the pattern. And it is, sometimes it's actually easier to do these if you don't know how to do mosaic crochet, because you've got no preconception of how you should be doing those stitches. Some people who have done lots and lots of these patterns struggle a little bit, because they have an expectation as to how it should all be done. Now the row that we've just completed there, we had an XR and an XL again in the white, so it was a stitch going down below and a stitch going off to the left or the right. And now we're into our final row of colour change. This is row 11. We've got the grey in place first of all. I'd left 2 grey spots on this row further along just to indicate how that might look when you were doing colour changes, but it doesn't actually change the way that you do anything on this. Some of my patterns do have multiple changes between 2 different colours, and on this one you can see that I've left the grey uncut. It's just sitting behind the yellow at the moment, and we're doing that 3 crochets together, which is the XRL, so that's going off to the right, down the middle, and then off to the left. And then there will be 4 stitches left on the hook that you need to bring your loop through. Then you put a single crochet in place, and that's when you'll move over to the grey again, because the next stitch is a grey, so it already needs to be in place. And we can tie off the yellow there because that's the last time we're going to use it now, and that's cut. So continue with the single crochets with the grey, and 3 double crochets left, and then we're moving on to row 12, which is just white again, and this is a fairly simple one. It's some single double crochets and then some double crochets. I use the American terms for crochet on my patterns because the single crochet and the double crochet does make sense to me to use that term, but I have found that so many patterns use different terminology that it's always best just to check what pattern you're using first and recheck what that might mean if you're not sure. The special stitches that I've put in my pattern, I don't really come across those elsewhere, which is why I felt it necessary to do the video on them. So they don't have special names, they're just my special stitches. We're now moving on to row 13, which is the grey again, and there's no colour change in this one, so there'll be 3 double crochet at the beginning and at the end of the row, and all the middle ones will be single crochet, so I'm not bothering to show you that. You don't need to see me doing all of those stitches again. And likewise row 14 was just single crochet, and the final row 15 was double crochet, and that's your finished pattern. This is a nonsense pattern, by the way. It is just an example of how to use those stitches. It was never meant